Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's virtual brown bag series. We've got a good one today for you. We've got Carole Coleman today, the coordinator of Engineering Career Readiness Initiatives. Boiled down, that means Carole's the one that works with you for co-ops and internships. She's the one that's in charge of the career fair that was fantastic yesterday. We had over 200 different employers, which was great to see. A lot of students out there. So Carole's going to talk to you today about quick tips for resumes, interviews, and job searching. Before Carole gets started, I would just like to let you know that you can find all of the virtual brown bag series events that are scheduled for the semester at go.uta.edu/COE-VBB. So hopefully that'll be helpful for you. You can also look back on other presenters that have happened previously, and you can kind of get ready for prepare your schedule for what's coming up. That all said, I will turn it over to Carole. Carole, go ahead and we're looking forward to hearing from you.
Okay, great. Thank you for having me this afternoon. I hope everybody had a opportunity to go over and talk with some of the employers that were at their career fair yesterday. We also have other activities that come on campus. Even today, we have employers here for Wednesday Spotlight Days and just other announcements that Mr. Agor sends out, as well as myself. So please look for those emails. One of the things I like to do, since I've been really involved in placement activity for the majority of my career, is I like to walk students through, how to design their resumes and work through interviews and job searching. So I'm going to give you some, just information that I think can help you provide, get ready for those all important job search activities. So let's dive right in. So the purpose of a resume is to get an interview. When you start designing your resume, the top half of the resume is going to be the most important, and that really changes over time. My resume, after I've had many years of experience, is going to look different from your resume, which is probably going to have your education at the very top. My education would be down towards the bottom. So what you really need the reader to see, and you want to consider this, is needs to really be in the top half of the resume. Recruiters spend, and those of you that went over to the job fair yesterday would know, they spend about 20 seconds looking at your resume, not much time. So you want to focus on what they've put into the resume, what their needs are, and the words that they've used. When resumes are sent into companies or they're being reviewed, most of those resumes are being reviewed by an actual recruiter, not the engineering hiring manager that you'll be talking to. So that's why you need to use those key words that they use, because that is what the recruiter is working from, is a requisition from the hiring manager. So just some general information. You want to make sure to list your education and jobs in reverse chronological order, unless there's a more important reason that you would put something before another. It's your most recent first, so it kind of works backwards when you're designing your resume. Key things you need to have on your resume would be your job title, company name, city, state, the date you're employed, and a job description using action verbs. And I'm going to go over writing the section. So yes, if you just have to have at least those 4 basic things: the job title, company name, city, state, and the dates employed. Your education section. The degree needs to be first. A lot of students put University of Texas at Arlington as the first item, and they put that in big bold letters, but we have a lot of degrees here. So what they're really looking for is, what are you getting your degree in? So that needs to be the first thing. The school you attended, the city and state, although I do think University of Texas at Arlington, Arlington, Texas is a bit redundant. I think you can leave Arlington, Texas out in that case, but in most cases you would put city and state, your expected graduation date, and your GPA if it is over 3.0. If your major GPA is better than your overall GPA, perhaps you want to list that. Maybe that would be more helpful. The skills section, what are they looking for? You know, when you're writing your skills, most of the time resumes are going to be something that you try to technically qualify for. So they want to see if you have the skills to do the job. So make sure that you have this easily identifiable in your resume. Don't have it buried in a bunch of text, and don't assume that they know that you have those just because you have a certain degree. Projects. When you're designing your project section, make sure to give it a nice title in bold and give a brief description of the skills that you use and use action verbs. Again, I'm going to show you how to write your work experience section as well as projects. And that's in the next part. Presenting your skills. And when you are putting this together, this is where you start to develop how you write. I mean, if you think about how you write a resume, most of it is very factual, straightforward information. This is where I worked. This was my job title, and so on. But then you really have to get into, you know, meatier topics about what you actually did on your job. So when you write that, you want to write that in an action verb format. So here's a couple of examples that I've put together. Produced Excel spreadsheets with vendor information utilizing formulas to create an analysis of vendor satisfaction, and collaborated with a team of students to form the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers chapter at UTA. As you notice in this example, you start out with a verb and you leave out all the kind of the little words. So when you're writing your resume, it isn't a sentence. You don't say, I produced Excel spreadsheets. You use produced, and it's kind of I guess you'd say choppier. And if it's a current position or something you're currently doing, you use the present tense verb of, in this case, produce. And if it's from the past, you would use, you know, produced, which is your past tense verb. So you want to, when you're designing that section, again, experience and projects, you want to piece that together using that kind of formula, which I think is probably the hardest thing that students have to do. So here's an example of a resume, and it's really just finest, most bare bones, putting this on paper. So you've got your name, address, phone, and email, the summary of qualifications, although most of you don't need a summary of qualifications. Most of you, once you move on down, you know, get a few years of experience, you would be able to make that summary of qualifications pop a little bit more. A good example, let's say you're applying for a certain position and you want to have the reader find your qualifications for that job pretty fast. You could put it in a summary. That's how it's most effectively used. So then here's your education section that we talked about. Related coursework, if you want to mention the classes that you've taken. The experience section, we talked about that a little bit, how to write that. Skills, computer and bilingual mainly is what you want to focus on. Projects, again, give them a title, talk about what you've done using your action verbs. And activities and organizations. What have you done since you've been on campus? That's valuable to companies. They want to know that you are a well-rounded student. So let me say one more thing about that resume. So again, that's kind of your bare bones resume example. And then you want to really put that to a little bit fancier, when you start handing these out and sending these out. And another note on resumes is there's something called applicant tracking systems. When it comes to large companies, your resume will go through a tracking system and software where the resume would be read by the software. In some cases, you may want to just have a kind of what you call a plain text resume without all the lines and bullets and things like that. So that's just a note there for you. Common mistakes on resumes is having too many bullets. You don't want to have bullets running down the entire page, sort of like the slide would be, because that's a lot of bullets and you don't want to distract the reader. There's 1-page versus 2-page debates. If you have to go to 2 pages, I mean, make sure that your first page, again, it's a priority list. Try to keep it to 1 page if you can, but make sure if you have that second page, it's important information. Double check your contact information. Make sure that your email and your phone number are correct. It can kind of wreak havoc if that's incorrect. References are a separate sheet of paper. They shouldn't be included in your resume. Don't leave off all unrelated work experience. There's things that we learn from working any kind of position. So you may have been working at a fast food place for a couple years. You go ahead and put it on, working somewhere that's important. And high school is really no longer relevant when it comes to talking about what's next. I mean, that's more you want to talk about more in your college career. Cover letters. Cover letters, I recommend that you do. It's a customary practice, and I think when students get on the internet, you're going to find out a lot of things. Some people say, oh, you don't need a cover letter and you don't have to do that, and put your picture on your resume, which we don't recommend. But when I teach these classes, I'm always really teaching you in the customary fashion. So that's where this is coming from. I recommend that you do put together a cover letter for jobs that you apply to. It's very simple. The first paragraph is the reason for the letter. The second paragraph is why you are interested and what you can offer. The third paragraph is express a desire for an interview and encourage a response. Now I'm going to put on the screen an example. Now you're not always going to know the name of the person, obviously, but you can write in Dear Hiring Manager. So I'll let you look at that for a second. But really it's a simple thing like this that you put together, and you make sure to change that each time. So a person is, not getting the wrong cover letter to the job that you're applying to. People do read the cover letter. They may not do that right away, but eventually they do, get around to that. So I recommend doing that. I think it makes you look better than people that didn't do that. It's really kind of simple. So interviews. If the purpose of your resume is to get an interview, the purpose of the interview is to get the job, and there's a difference between the two of them. Your resume, technically qualifies you. It's what you are on paper. But when you get into the interview, this is your time to see how you fit into the organization. And they want to see how you're going to fit in as well. So when you start thinking about what you have to offer, which is what we're talking about, These are some skills that employers are looking for, and this is where we're talking about what we call soft skills. I can't really help you with a technical interview. I have no idea what would be asked during that. They'd all be very different. So I'm just sort of guiding you through the basic human resources questions and soft skills type interviews. What you would want to do with the skills that employers want is figure out which skills you have and write examples of how you've used them. That way you're able to communicate with the employer what you have to offer. So the first one here is communication and analytical research skills, computer technical skills, flexibility and adaptability. I think most of you feel like you probably through the pandemic have had to be flexible and adaptable. So where's an example of that? Managing multiple tasks, interpersonal skills, leadership and management, multicultural sensitivity, organization, problem solving and reasoning, creativity, teamwork, honesty, integrity, dedication and work ethics. These are all things that you want to, pick which that you have and can write an example of it. How about being dependable and reliable, being a loyal employee, having positive attitude and passion for the degree plan that you've chosen. We want to hear that you're truly interested in what you've chosen to do as your degree plan, as well as being part of a company, what we do. Are you, really interested in that? Not just finding a job, but you are interested in what we do. Professionalism, self-confidence, the ability to work unsupervised, and a willingness to learn, because we all have a lot to learn when we start a new position. So these are all nice examples that you can kind of utilize during interview to demonstrate some of your strengths. Now, some general tips. Make sure to research the company that you're applying to and make sure to practice what you're going to say during the interview. Always use eye contact and be positive. You never want to be negative during that interview. There's 3 types of interviews that I'd like to discuss today and what they are. Informational, traditional, and behavioral. So informational interviewing is actually not really where you're interviewing for a job. Informational interviewing is where, for example, you would get with someone on LinkedIn. Let's say you have a company that you really like. Let me just pick Microsoft, and you see a software engineer for Microsoft, maybe even from UTA, and you want to ask them a question about what it is like to work for Microsoft. That's what informational interviewing is. You're not asking for a job. You are reaching out to people that have a job that you think would interest you, and to find out more information about what it's like to work for that company, what they do on a daily basis. That's what informational interviewing does. And the thing is, it can lead to an open position. Sometimes, you'll find out about your career, but also this person may know someone that has a position in another area, or they may have other people in your field that may be hiring. So it's an interesting way and sort of aggressive but not aggressive way to find out more about the companies that you're really interested in. That's what informational interviewing is. So the traditional interview has to do with just some of your basic human resources questions. It starts out with what we call the elevator speech, or You know, I've been teaching this for so long. We called it the 2-minute commercial. I think it's gone to 3 minutes now. But it's an elevator speech. And a lot of you in your classes, you've talked about it. It's basically how to respond to tell me about yourself. That first question that a lot of employers ask, or what you would say to someone if you just met them in an elevator and you had to make a quick impression about who you are and what you're interested in. So things that I think would be interesting to put in the response would be, why did you choose the field that you've chosen? Something about your education, your work experience and projects. What interests you about this company, and grab their interest from the very beginning. So you want to put this all together in sort of a script, your elevator speech, which is about you. Okay, so you want to write that out and be prepared with that first question. Tell me about yourself. We'll go through questions to expect next. So you want to, again, know what strengths you have and provide examples and prove it. So here's basic interview questions. And I don't give you too much because I feel like if you get too much, you won't really work on it. So I try to give you some basic things to work from that I think will get you through most interview situations. So tell me about yourself. Again, there's your elevator speech. Have that ready to go, because that's usually the starter question and is sort of a make or break. So have that prepared. What do you know about our company? What interests you about our company? Make sure that you've done your research. Look up the latest news releases from the company. At least have a pretty good idea about what they do. And again, this is an opportunity to show why you are interested, because we only want to hire people that are interested in working for us. Tell me about your education. You know, that's where you can talk about what classes you've taken, what your GPA was like, what you enjoyed most. Why did you choose this career? You know, I definitely want to hear that that's something that you are interested in, how you got to that decision. I think that's always really interesting to hear. How does this position fit in your overall career plan? Have an idea how that position would. And sometimes, you know, you don't necessarily know everything, especially when you're just starting out with your career, but how does this, I mean, have an idea of what direction you think it could go. How would your boss describe you? What do you think of your last supervisor? Those need to be positive things that you can add to the conversation. Always keep it positive. How do you handle working under deadlines or pressure? Every job is going to have some deadlines. Every job is going to have pressure. So give examples of how you manage that. And it can be handling all the different courses and the projects and assignments that you have. How do you put that together? Do you put that on a calendar? How do you manage that? That's what I want to know, because that's probably what you'll do when you start working for the company. What are your strengths? Again, kind of go back to some of those things that I pulled up earlier, those skills that employers are looking for. Give me some examples of the strengths that you have and how you've used them. It's not enough to say to people, you give real examples. If you say, I'm a hard worker, and and then you say something like, I put in 12 hours yesterday on a career fair, then you might think someone's a hard worker. So give examples. What is your greatest weakness? That can be handled in different ways. It can be something relatively obvious, like a lack of experience, maybe, that's kind of obvious. It could be something that you are working on, something that you can turn into a strength. If you say it would be a lack of experience, but I'm very willing to learn as much as I can. So that kind of thing. What are your salary expectations? You should look on Glassdoor and have an idea around, a $5,000 range is what you want to put together. Where else are you interviewing? I'm sure a lot of you are going to be asked that question now, especially with the job market as busy as it is. I guess companies want to know who they're competing with, and you also kind of want to treat this a little salesy, that you are interviewing other places and that, someone's going to be hiring you soon. So you want to kind of, give them the names of companies that, you're considering, you're talking to, that kind of thing. What position do you expect to have in 2 to 5 years? Make sure to, don't say things like you're going to be running the company, but that you would want to, learn as much as possible and be willing to learn as much as you can. And if there's opportunity for promotions, things like that, that you're open to that advancement, I guess you'd say. What kind of hours would you like to work? That would be what they're interested in is, if you can meet the deadlines that they have. You can tell them what kind of hours you like to work, as far as if you maybe like to come in the mornings or a little bit later in the day. Some people have different shifts. So you can find out a little bit more about that. I would also want to know, what kind of hours they would expect. And that should be a question that comes up as well for you as you're trying to determine if this is the right job for you. So I would kind of ask questions along with that. Again, why do you want to work for us? That what interests you? Why should we hire you? What do you have to offer? And then, do you have any questions for me? So these are your basic interview questions. So behavioral interviewing, that's something that that comes up a lot, and companies have started to ask these questions. And the reason they do this is because the best predictor of future behavior is the past. So when you start to answer these questions, you want to devise your response in what we call the STAR approach. You describe the situation, the task that had to be completed, the action that you took, and the result, which always needs to be positive. I always like to say, do you always have a friend that's late to everything that you do? Yes. Okay, there's a perfect example of, the best predictor of future behavior is the past. That's why these questions are used, and that's why they're relevant. So I've put some together for you, and I don't think it's an overwhelming amount for you to work on. So let me think. I'm not going to go through each one of these. You really have to write your own, example. But here's a good one. Tell me about a time when you voiced a concern or disagreement to a coworker, supervisor, or professor. That's a really good one, because how you're going to respond to that means that's probably how you're going to handle disagreements on the job, which does happen a lot. So you want to, be able to try to explain how you handle those situations. Describe one of your most stressful experiences and how you coped with the situation. Okay, you want to work on something like that. There's another page here. Tell me about a time when you were effective in putting your technical expertise to use to solve a problem. Or let's see. There's another one that I really like. Describe a time when you anticipated potential problems and developed preventative measures. Tell me about a time when you successfully worked with someone you didn't particularly like. Those are all real examples of things that happen in the workplace. So working through these behavioral questions will help you, prepare for what questions they may ask. I mean, there's quite a few of them they could ask, but this should help prepare you for them. A note to you on phone screens. A lot of you will have a phone screen before they bring you in for an interview. It just saves a lot of time. Sorry, to get a drink of water there. All right. So for phone screens, make sure there's no noise, that you're in a quiet place. Make sure to have your resume with you. Prepare and demonstrate accomplishments. Also research the company and handle the compensation question. If our job pays $70,000 a year and you want 100, I'm not going to be bringing you in because that's just, a bit of a waste of time. So make sure you have these things together as you're talking to them. A lot of times I tell students, if you've got a lot of resumes out there, your phone rings, we all get a lot of spam calls and things that we don't pick up. It's okay. You can let the person go to voicemail. Then you can find out who is calling you later. You can go back, figure out what job you applied to with that company. Because if you've applied to 50 companies, you're not going to remember every single job. Gives you an opportunity to look that up, and so you can, be better during that phone screen. So I just suggest you let them leave a message. Questions you want to ask. There's some questions that you want to put together for them. Of course, my favorite is what are the expectations you have for the person who takes this position? It's very important that you have an idea of what their expectations are. And sometimes you have to prepare for people that aren't that great at interviewing. Not everyone is a professional interviewer. I mean, most people aren't, but you want to ask enough questions that you have an idea of what their expectations are and whether you want to take the position, because it is a two-way street. You want to make sure you're going to go in and get in the right career path and in the right field in the company. So you want to ask enough questions about that. So always have some questions for them. Send them a thank you email. I recommend doing it. People aren't doing it this much anymore. And yet here we go with a customary practice that I just recommend. Get business cards. When you go to interviews, get business cards of people that you talked with. You have the correct spelling of their names, you have their title, you have their email, you even have their phone number on those cards. And then you can email them and thank them for that interview. Try to do that within 24 hours. You can, re-emphasize what you've told them or bring up something new that maybe you forgot. I mean, we've all done that. We've walked out of interviews thinking, oh, I really wish I would have brought that up. So it gives you an opportunity to put that out there again, and that might be helpful to them. So job search strategies. I mean, right now, I think we have a pretty good job market. I mean, based on our experience with the career fair yesterday, I would say we have a pretty strong job market. In a good job market, you get a 10% response rate. So if you send out 100 resumes, you should get 10 phone calls if your resume is working for you. There's some other, details with that, but for the most part, that's what you really want to shoot for, is about 10% response. Finding a job really is a job. It's a whole thing. Some of us get lucky. Some of us will go to the career fair, we'll interview with some place and they'll hire us, and that'll happen fast. But for other people, you're going to spend a lot of time doing this. And so set a time every week that you're going to be working on this, or Saturday morning that you're going to be sending out jobs and really working through this process, because that is what it takes. And the job market might not always be as good as it is. So know what you need to do. Students will ask me all the time, what's the one thing I need to do? And I say, there is no one thing. You need to be, going online and applying to positions online. Indeed's a good one. So is LinkedIn. I think mostly everyone has used Handshake. Handshake's a great tool. We have a lot of employers go to Handshake. Go to your networking events like professional organizations and presentations, career fairs, using cold calling, informational interviewing, and just basically letting people know that you're looking for a job. All those things. Utilize all your tools. If you want more information, I have videos and handouts of all the things I just discussed right now in my online Canvas course, which is free and available to you 24/7. So you can work on this at any time, putting your resume together and getting interview sheets. I also have information on updating your LinkedIn profile, which can walk you through how to make that better. All in my Canvas course, which again is free and you can access it 24/7. This is my information. Students can call me, email me. They can also book an appointment online. Right now, I am on campus Monday through Wednesday and typically working virtually on Thursdays and Fridays. And now I'm open for any questions.
Well, Carole, thank you. We don't have any questions from the audience, but I will ask you, just because we had the career fair yesterday, what were your impressions of the career fair? What did you see? Did you see any kind of trends, or did you see, I mean, obviously there were way more companies there than we've ever had in the past, and we've always had more than 100 companies there, at least in the recent past. So what are you seeing out there as far as employers trying to find people to hire, and as far as what our students were doing when they were at the career fair?
I think what's really important is students be prepared. Sometimes I'm seeing we put online our list and you can actually filter through it. So students really need to be very prepared when they go in and do their research as to who they're going to talk to and who they're going to hand resumes to. Be dressed professionally. I know some students may have not had clothes for the event, didn't have time, that kind of thing, but do have a professional outfit available for these things. And again, have your list ready to go. I did see a lot of students that were, a bit unprepared. Some people were very prepared, but some weren't. So you don't want to be one of those that were not prepared.
Great advice. Always be prepared for your interviews, because you may think it's not something that's going to lead to much, or you may just be there for practice or to find information or something like that. And you might meet somebody and talk to somebody that really clicks, and all of a sudden you're in a great position. So definitely, I thank you, Carole. Always be prepared for what could happen.
Yep.
Well, Carole Coleman, thank you very much for your presentation today. We appreciate your time as always. The next virtual brown bag session is this coming Friday at noon. It's Lessons from a Lifelong Learner, Industry, Philanthropy, and Policy, presented by Gloria Bender of Trans Solutions. So we hope you'll join us at noon on Teams for that. This will be posted to our virtual brown bag website at some point here in the next day or so, so you'll be able to go back and look at it again. And for now, I will say goodbye, and we'll hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.